president of Low Carbon Solutions for Exxon Mobil, joining us exclusive this morning on Squawk Box. Dan, you guys are announcing plans to begin drilling your first well in southwest Arkansas at an area with a huge lithium deposit. Give us some perspective on the potential impact of beginning production that will ultimately come online in 2027.
Yeah, sure thing, Phil. Look, this is really exciting news from our point of view. We look at this as a win-win-win. We're going to be ramping up domestic production of lithium, which is a critical mineral for the energy transition that's currently being imported from elsewhere in the world. We're going to be doing that with a much smaller environmental footprint than the way that lithium gets produced elsewhere in the world today. And then thirdly, we're going to be drawing on decades of experience and know-how inside of Exxon Mobil to build a profitable and high-growth new business.
But Dan, you know, right now the lithium price, it's come off considerably from where it was earlier this year, last year. And a lot of people think that softer pricing is going to last here for a while. When you look out on the landscape, and I know it's hard to predict any price of any commodity, but what do you see?
Yeah, we're very much taking the long view here, Phil. If you look at the evolution of electrification of the light vehicle fleet, 1% of the U.S. vehicle fleet is electrified today. So there's still 99% to go. There's still a huge opportunity ahead of us. We see lithium demand quadrupling by 2030 and continuing to ramp up significantly beyond that. So we view this as a very large, very long-term opportunity. And that's certainly the way that we're investing in this, is to build a business very much for the long term.
Dan, you and I talked for a number of years when you were at General Motors about the push at GM and with all automakers to develop electric vehicles. But right now, hybrids are outselling EVs, and the growth of sales for EVs has slowed down. Are you a little bit surprised at the soft patch, if you will, the slower growth rate for EVs?
Well, I think we got to look at the data, Phil. In the third quarter in the United States, EV sales grew 50% year over year. That's a pretty good growth rate. And we see that high growth continuing for a long time. And again, if we're at 1% of the vehicle fleet today, and we need to get obviously to a much higher percentage in the long run, it's going to be very high growth sustained for a very long time. That may have some ups and downs and some fits and starts as we go, but again, we see very much long-term opportunity. We're playing the long-term game here.
Do you understand the appeal right now for hybrids as opposed to EVs? And again, we understand that EV sales are growing, but hybrids are having a moment right now where people are saying, I want that gas option.
Yeah, look, I think there's going to be multiple alternatives here, Phil. I think we're going to see, just as we look at the broader energy transition, there's an all of the above strategy. I think you'll see that in light vehicles as well. We've seen really rapid growth in EVs to this point. We think that growth will sustain. We think there's a role clearly for hybrids in there. And it's going to take a very, very long time for the internal combustion fleet to roll over here as well, just given that we're at 1% of the fleet overall today.
Dan, you were CEO of GM's subsidiary Cruise for a number of years, and I'm not asking you to comment on the current situation at Cruise, where they have suspended their operations and they're waiting to see what happens with the state of California. But there is a broader question, separate from Cruise, about whether or not autonomous vehicles will catch hold, as many expect them to, let's say in the next few years. Based on what you know from all the years that you spent at Cruise and what you know about the development of autonomous vehicles, when do you think that technology takes hold?
Well, Phil, as you know, I left Cruise just about 2 years ago, so I'm a little out of date. But look, I think the big trends of autonomous vehicles, electrification, those trends will continue. And I think the big variable, as you just pointed out, is what's the time for those things to occur? What are the things that are necessary for those to unfold here? And so those big trends, we're betting on the big trend of electrification, through the growth of this lithium business here today. And again, we think it's a very big, very long-term trend.
Hey, Dan, Phil didn't ask you to comment on it, but I would love to just get your views, given that you're an expert and you spent a lot of time at Cruise. You know this space super well. Where do you think we sit with autonomy at this point? What do you think happened at Cruise, and what does it say more broadly even about the whole space?
Yeah, look, it's not my place to comment on what's going on at Cruise. You should ask the folks at Cruise about what's happening there right now. Look, I think autonomy generally, we said all along, it's a huge challenge. It's going to take a long time to solve that challenge.
What do you think a long time is?
Progress is getting made, and we'll need to keep working at it.